The conference is organized as interplay between in-situ activities and online activities. And big hello to our online community, which is now behind this camera. You see it? Okay, great. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, it's great honor to welcome you to Geneva Engage Conference, where, as the title says, we would like to engage you here in situ, our participants online, in discussion on e-participation and modern diplomacy. We have planned it as the event where we will try to walk the talk. Therefore, the conference is organized basically as both online and in-situ event. And you will see that it is experiment in vivo, I hope successful experiment in vivo. But we at Diplo have that image of experimenting so far successfully, but there is always risk in this type of exercises. I'm particularly honored to have today with us representatives of two co-organizers of the conference and the strong supporters of the activities of Diplo and JP, Ambassador Alexandre Fasel, representing Switzerland. He's the permanent representative of Switzerland to the United Nations in Geneva. And Olivier Coutau, Delegate for International Geneva, Republic and State of Geneva, which I sometimes call Minister of Foreign Affairs of Canton of Geneva, informally. Without further ado, I would like to invite first Ambassador Fasel to deliver his welcome address, please.
Thank you very much, Jovan, dear Monsieur Coutau, dear Olivier, délégué à la Genève internationale, Monsieur le Directeur, Excellencies, Mesdames et Messieurs. On behalf of the permanent mission of Switzerland, I would like to warmly welcome you here in the room and by remote participation to this Geneva Engage conference, which is organized here at the Geneva Internet platform with the support of the Canton of Geneva and DiploFoundation. 2 years ago, I had the honor and pleasure to be standing here, or rather sitting like today, because as today we were in a panel format to inaugurate the Geneva Internet platform. And today I'm utterly pleased to report how well this platform is going, how well it has developed, how well and successfully it operates in meeting what we then perceived as a need to set up in Geneva an impartial platform aimed at addressing all current issues and questions related to the internet and its governance. So this is working very well. And I would like to thank and congratulate Jovan Kurbalija, the director of DiploFoundation and coordinator of the Geneva Internet platform, and his whole team for this work, but also for organizing today's and tomorrow's conference here once again around a burning issue: how to go about the right mix when discussing and deciding about questions that concern communities worldwide. To use a metaphor, you may know that the ideal number of people in any given meeting for the meeting to be a successful and productive and effective one is understood to be 12. And yet, today in our digital world, there are more than 3 billion people who have a mobile phone and a tablet or whatever, giving them technically the possibility to participate in such exchanges. And so they want to know, and probably they have a right to know what is going on and what is being discussed, since what is being discussed here in Geneva does impact on the lives of virtually everybody around the world. So to some extent, the point then is that e-tools need to be adjusted to a wide range of scenarios. They can support the work of a selected and focused group, the 12 negotiators or discussants around the table, but they can also support the creation of a highly inclusive environment, for example, reaching out to the billions and billions of mobile users worldwide, helping them to voice their views and participate in the debate. So this conference today today will and tomorrow will explore that. On the one hand, to which extent a center like International Geneva, with all its expertise and norm-setting roles and functions, is, should, could, shall be connected electronically with communities worldwide when discussing and deciding about such questions as development, migration, human rights, health, trade, labor, and so on. And on the other hand, it will be interesting to discuss how much the in situ discussions here in Geneva, as such, are influenced by this type of intercommunication and the influx of views and contributions from far afield. So, do we welcome this influence? Can we, probably we yes, we should, that's my answer, but how do we deal with it? Can we, as International Geneva, what can we gain from international participation? How should we organize it that it is most effective? And so those are the questions and others that are going to be discussed here. I thank you for your interest and participation, et je vous souhaite bon travail.
Thank you, Ambassador Fasel, for giving us the first metaphor and coordinates for our discussion. Therefore, we should, if I am correct, discuss what happened between 12 and 3 billion, and in the some sort of architecture of the most, the deepest discussion and probably effective, and up to 3 billion. Well, there could be some concerns that could be the most ultimate inclusive discussion. That's those are interesting parameters that we should keep in mind while we are discussing. Well, I'm sure that now that we will hear the more elements about how to approach this this architecture between 12 and 3 billion from Olivier Coutau. Please, Olivier.
Thank you very much, Jovan. I'm very happy to be here today for this long-awaited event. I think that the first time we spoke about it, Jovan, it was more than 1 year ago. But today we have a great program, and we have great people in the room, great people online, and I would like to thank you very much, Jovan, for the idea, and you and your team for the organization of the event. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, International Geneva is not only about Geneva. International Geneva is not only about the 30,000 people working for IOs, NGOs, or missions here in Geneva. It's also about the rest of the world. It's also about the 7.3 billion people living outside Geneva. Not only 3 billion people, but hopefully one day it's going to be more. So we are 7.3 billion people living on this planet. And I'm sure that in a few minutes' time, the Director General or his representative will tell us that each decision taken here in Geneva has an impact on every people living on this planet. I'm sure because it says that all the time. He's right, of course. He's right. And it's not to you that I'm going to explain that. But to me, the question is, how do we make sure that all the people concerned are aware of it? How do we make sure that the farmer growing rice in Madras, Sri Lanka, or the combatant in Kunduz, Afghanistan, or the teacher in Juba, South Sudan, or say the factory director in Zenica, Bosnia and Herzegovina, is aware of what is going on here in Geneva? And the next and equally important question is, how do we make sure that the same people are able to engage with the decision processes taking place here in Geneva? How can they participate? How can they make their voices heard? How can they influence the outcome? So these are no little questions, I think. What is at stake here is the relevance of this big international administrative machinery. Is this machinery well aware of what is going on here in Geneva, in the real world? Are the expectations of the people taken into account? Are the decisions adapted? And actually, what I might be talking here about is a very old word, democracy. don't worry, I'm not thinking that e-participation can replace a world parliament. And I'm not trying to say that at the moment Geneva is completely disconnected from the rest of the world. But still, I do believe that e-participation, digital engagement can help to make International Geneva more accountable, more impactful, more relevant, and at the end of the day, more sustainable. So that's the reason why the content of Geneva is proud to support this conference. I hope that it will not just be another conference, but that tomorrow evening all of us we have clear idea of what can be done, and above all that we will all of us be willing to implement these ideas. So, Jovan, you see that the expectations are quite high, but I think that this is a nice challenge, and I wish us all fruitful exchanges.
Thank you, Olivier, for, well, I'm always, okay. Well, so far technology has worked fine, because we have an interesting history about failures, which we'll discuss during the session on the failures of e-participation, including from this room. But thank you for adding to this sort of a construct of, if I can say, plan for the conference. Both Alexandre, you indicated the major coordinates: widening participation up to 3 billion, and deepening participation up to 12 plus participants, related to very concrete concerns that you listed, from factory workers in Zenica to field workers in Africa. Therefore, those are the major coordinates of our discussion: how to widen participation, and how to deepen participation, how to make it more inclusive. In this context, in order to cover that space, the conference will have two distinctive features. First, it will be experimental event. We will experiment with the new tools and new processes in the e-participation. And second, it will be knowledge sharing space. You and all of us will be both speakers and participants, and we'll try to blur the traditional line between participants and speakers, and between online participants and in situ participants. Now, keeping that in mind, I will just make, before we invite the representative of the United Nations office in Geneva, I will try to go quickly through the program of the conference to indicate what is ahead of us. Immediately after the opening session, we'll have a presentation of awards for the winners of the Geneva Engage Awards. And then they will present why are we so good. They will answer the question why they managed to win this award. After the lunch break, we'll have the session with Richard Bowley, former director of the US Office of E-Diplomacy, one of the pioneers in the field of e-diplomacy. And after that, at 2:40, one interesting session on how Internet governance community contributed to global public good of e-participation. And I'm particularly pleased that today with us is one of the partners of our event, representative of ICANN, Mr. Tarek Kamal, who is sitting here. Thank you, Tarek, for joining us. During this session, we will basically see how, over the last 10 years, ITU, ICANN, ISOC, IGF played in a way jam session with some sort of competition, but also cooperation in developing new tools. And we will finish with a session on how to implement remote participation, and what to do when it goes wrong, stories of disaster and recovery. And I invite you to join us from Diplo in a sort of a sharing failures which are inevitable in any experiment, in particular in e-participation.
And recoveries.
And recoveries. There is always a solution. Tomorrow we'll start with another pioneer in e-diplomacy. He will join, like Richard Bowley, he will join from Rome, Stefano Baldi, training director of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Italy. And he will speak about e-diplomacy highlights, tips and tricks. And the session after that will be speed geek format, knowledge exchange, with representatives of major institutions here in Geneva, World Trade Organization, CERN, and ITU, discussing on the ways how to implement e-participation. Then we move it to widening e-participation with the Child Rights Connect representative, and deepening with Kuno Schafli from the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, telling us how the stories, how the recording of the stories created an emotional dimension in the e-participation. And we continue with the deepening with the representatives of NENA joining us from Africa, Isabelle Tatier, Kuno Schafli, Roland Schatz, and Jovan Zan. For the end of the conference, we'll have a game. The game on inclusiveness in e-participation in the pursuit of sustainable development goals. Therefore, there will be a lot of fun throughout the conference, but that will be the real game, organized by Carolina Rodriguez, coordinator of Perception Change Project of the United Nations Office at Geneva. And we will conclude with basically answering the question what we have learned. So what does it really matter? We hope it matters. Now what do we do as a next step to continue this engagement process? Now, since I mentioned the game and the United Nations Office at Geneva, as you know, those of you who are in Geneva, we have very creative, very dynamic leadership of the United Office in Geneva. Unfortunately, the director of the general director of the UNOG in Geneva, Mr. Michael Muller, cannot join us today. He is, what I just heard from Salman Band, who will deliver his statement, is sick in bed, hopefully following our presentation, and maybe adding to another concept that we may introduce in our e-participation summary, that e-participation could reduce the spread of viruses. And few members of our team, Pete, came with a bit of sort of, we have to determine what was the virus, but you were coughing yesterday, now today you're better. Anyhow, without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Salman Bal to deliver the statement from the Director General.
Is he coming here?
Yes,
yep.
He's coming.